All right. We've heard the presentations, and I think we've looked at this item before. And Rob, I appreciate your narrative. While I think it captured a couple more things than originally you had mentioned, but that's fine. I think this is an item that we discussed, and some of the items, well, the committee, and I'm speaking for myself, I'm not speaking for the entire council, and they can speak for themselves. Some of the comments that are made and some of the items is that, it's an education process that we should start whatever day after, assuming we're successful on moving this UT back onto the ballot and having the citizens vote for it. And for me, I feel the education starts right now, and we need to be able to educate our community and our citizens about the importance of this utility tax, regardless of if it's going to be April 10th or June 5th. We should not be waiting and doing this one more time. One more time. It's time for us to respect our community, respect the intelligence of this community, and help everyone understand the importance of why we need it. I think we've demonstrated that since 2003, that we continue to say every 5 years, but it's going to get better. But every 5 years, we find ourselves knowing that we need to do something. So my position has been, I'm not in favor of going 5 more years. I'm in favor of it being going to the voters as permanent, and going to the voters to the point where we have people participating. I looked at the data, I've looked at the agenda, and every election has been on an odd year. And we've allowed, as I think Ms. Robbins said, we've got 39,000 plus people who are registered voters, but we almost kind of rely on the fact that we'll have a low turnout and people will not pay attention. But the decision becomes a decision that the whole community has to accept and have to be a part of. So I've spoken to my colleagues in closed session about that, and that's something that concerns me. I also know that low income, with the data that we saw, we have low income people who do actually come in and identify, and they have to do that yearly in order to continue to qualify. Seniors, I'm a senior, but I think there's some seniors that are in our community that exceed over 100,000. So I have a problem with us continuing to just exempt seniors based on age and not looking at, is it really right and fair to say a senior should get the opportunity to exempt themselves even when they maybe have an income that well exceeds the average income in our community by twofold? So those are things that have been concerned to me. And of course, I wanted to see us have a reduction to our residents, because we said we would try and find a way to glean ourselves off of this with the Measure U. We all know now that Measure U is going to be tied up still in some litigation for quite some time. And I think someone did make a comment that I think Rob, in your presentation, that there's some cities that are even higher in the percentage. One of the things you also noted that I've been constantly asking for, even before the formation of the advisory committee, is let's also determine to what degree are we seeing this revenue, the utility tax, diminish based on some of the things you said. People's phones usage is going to pay as you go. Solar is beginning to change it as well. So, we have a natural built-in, based on the community's behavior, that the utility tax, the dollar generation is going to continue to be somewhat dropping. So those are some of the things that I have expressed. There was 4 things that I felt we really need to deal with. It is respect our citizens and let them know how important it is, that this is essential to our existence, and it's probably not going to change in another 5 years, because we've demonstrated that since 2003. It's a significant part of the budget. It represents close to 18% of the budget, and 75% of our budget, our personnel, is our public safety.
Yes,
right?
70%.
So that's not going to change, even though we say we put it on the ballot for 5 and then begin to educate people in 5. The behavior I've seen is that we go into a sense of lull. We get caught off doing the day-to-day activity, and we don't get back to that education process, and we won't be educating until maybe a year or 6 months before the next sunset. So that's been my concern. Permanent, the 8%, the exemption for low income seniors. Colleagues, I've said, I think there should be a threshold of over 100,000 or more. If you have income over 100,000 or more, you're a senior. Why? But if your morals are such that you want to step up and take that exemption, I'm not going to hold tight on that issue. But those are some of the things I'm concerned with, and so I don't know, and I don't think we have really adequately looked at some of the things that we should consider in terms of revenue generation. I think you spoke to one in terms of possibly if we should be looking at a fire district, if we should be looking at other ways to restructure ourselves. All of those, when we go down those paths, we get getting people who come forward and they become very passionate and very personal. And I think when you talk about fire districts, I believe we've candidly said to others, that's an item that we're not bringing forward. If that's something that the unit feels, they need to bring it forward as an alternative. They were asked, they being our employees, to also present suggestions. And some of the suggestions they presented is for us to maybe tighten the belt in workers' comp, to look at this and look at that. So those are my thoughts and my position, and I don't know if any of the others have. Oh, and then one more thing that I've asked, and I don't know if the committee finally saw, was see what levels of litigation that we have against us and who is suing us. The bulk of our litigation is not by the outside community. The bulk of our litigation occurs with our own employees that are serving us. So that's another thing that I was told you had not received the breakdown on the litigation costs that we are continually in closed session having to make decisions on. And I don't know, I asked the interim city administrator, did you give him the breakdown of the litigation or just a summary?
We're still doing the back data. I got the data from July 1st through December 31st, so I'm still trying to, because you asked for 3 years back.
But you haven't provided the committee with anything yet?
They had gotten something earlier or late last year from me regarding legal costs, so I provided information Fred had given me on all of the cases and all of the allocations to departments, at least for this year. So we were trying to go back 3 years now. We didn't allocate by department in prior years, so we're trying to figure out if we can come up with some way to do that.
Or maybe there was a misunderstanding from the committee saying they didn't receive that information.
I did give them some legal information that they asked for, but I thought you expanded on it by asking me to go back further than what I had given them.
Okay, no, I was only speaking of breakdowns according to the costs by departments. Mayor Pro Tem?